Hi, I am AnnMarie Prake, and I am your host for today's Second Act Living podcast. This is a place where people in the second act of their life can come together to talk, laugh, pray about everything that this stage of life has to throw at you. So please help me welcome today's guest, Ruthie Gray. Ruthie is a Gen X mom. Let's go. 15-year caregiver and author of Empty Nest Awakening, Weaving the Threads of Your Passions into Purpose. I love that. As a self-proclaimed juggler of generations, Ruthie believes her God-given purpose is to impart peace, joy, and wisdom to moms managing the demands of multiple age groups. Ruthie is the host of the Sandwich Season Sanity podcast, and you can find her resources at ruthiegray.com. So, Ruthie, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Good. So before we hop into the interview, I always like to start with rapid fire questions. I just feel like it's kind of fun, and sometimes it helps the guests forget they're being recorded. so, so are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Send them on.
So when going on a date with your husband, do you choose romantic candlelit dinner or Netflix and pizza?
Netflix and pizza.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to show you guys are watching right now?
Uh, we are watching a show. It's a reality show that someone just told us about called The Traitors.
Oh, yeah? I've heard about that show. Is it good?
It is saucy.
It's
It is really good. I mean, like these people are backstabbers. It is something
Oh,
else.
yeah.
There's a lot of Botox lips up in the house too. That's
Mhm. Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Fillers and Botox. It's the
Yeah,
time, state of the time. Um, when going on a trip, do you pack your whole closet or do you travel light?
whole closet, absolutely everything. I am too afraid to be without my stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but my mood changes quite a bit.
Yeah,
So what I
so does the
thought
weather.
what I thought I would want to wear on a Tuesday, that's not what I'm feeling that day.
It's
So
true. It's
yes.
true.
Um, where are you finding your joy in midlife?
Uh, it is in, Florida. The joy is in Florida. Um, Thankfully, that is where my husband's job is, so I get to be here a lot. We live in 2 states, so we live in a cold state in Florida, so that is a joy, filled area. Plus, my grandkids are wonderful, and, writing. I love it. I love it so much, and I am enjoying, actually writing a book right now, so I love it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I didn't know that about you with Florida. Where in Florida?
St. Pete?
Okay. We're in St. Augustine. So
Really?
yeah,
Okay. How
yeah.
did I not know that?
And
Well,
I didn't know that about you either. Okay, that's fun. Okay.
yeah.
Uh, what has been your favorite vacation?
Well, it wasn't the time that my husband loaded up the kids and me in a motor coach and took us out west in May, and it was still snowing out there. That wasn't it. That's not what you asked me, but I like warm weather. So probably one of my favorites is when my husband and I went for one of our anniversaries. Recently, I think it was like year 33 to the Keys in
Mm,
our motor coach. That was fun, and we
fun.
pulled up at this little, thatched hut, and it was open, and it was, like, right off of this dock, right off of the water, and that's where we parked all week. It was awesome.
Sounds amazing. Yes, sounds amazing. What is your bucket list vacation?
That's Greece. I wanna do a river cruise to Greece.
That sounds amazing. We always get, as we've entered midlife, we always get Viking cruise pamphlets in the mail now,
Yes.
like
Yes.
the river
And
cruise.
Norwegian, all of that. Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Yep. Um, what is one new skill or hobby you've always wanted to learn?
I would love to be, athletic and ride bikes really well, and I tried to do that about 15 years ago, and, I was not really successful at it at all. I'm just not. I just finally gave it up, so
Mm. You can try again. If there's it's never too late. Um, what is one way you stay connected with your kids and grandkids?
we do a lot of texting. We all have, between my husband and I and our 4 kids and their spouses, we have, like, 4 or 5 different text groups
Yeah.
according to what one of them's called the Downies for the Downton Abbey people, and, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of FaceTime with the babies. And then when we are our at our home in West Virginia where our grandkids are, we're always with them. Like, they're always dropping by, or we're doing stuff with them, or taking them to McDonald's or whatever.
Hmm.
It's fun.
What is your go-to stress reliever?
The beach,
Mm. Mhm.
grounding on the beach,
Mm.
just sitting there watching the water and not doing anything else, just watching the water. It is so calming and relaxing, especially if I've had a high stress season. Um, I will make myself do that. And
Mm.
you can attest to this. It's hard to make yourself do it even though you live at the beach.
Oh, I almost never go. I'm 10 minutes from
Mhm.
yeah.
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So I love that you said that you don't do anything. I bring books, I almost never read them. I sit and I like to do exactly what I just look at the waves. There's just something so incredibly grounding and peaceful about it. You're right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Mhm. Okay, so I don't know if this applies to you, so if it doesn't, you don't have to answer. What's worse, hot flashes or forgetting why you walked into a room?
Hot flashes 100,000%.
Yeah, they're the worst.
Can't do those.
Yeah,
I've done everything in the world to avoid those. I
yeah.
don't care if I forget. I'm gonna forget anyway, so
Yeah.
hot flashes
I
all
feel
the
like
way.
that's what lists are for, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And, so what is one piece of advice you would give your 20-something self?
Stop stressing out about being perfect.
Mm,
Your house doesn't have to be perfect. Your homework doesn't at this time in 20, I was, in college and engaged. But you don't have to be perfect about everything. You don't have to be perfect about your homework. You don't have to be perfect about your room, about your fiance, about your friends. You don't have to be perfect to them. You don't have to dress perfectly. You don't have to rehash every conversation in your memory. And why did I say that? That was so dumb.
wow. Yeah, I can attest to all of that, and having a daughter who's probably my twin, I that is my prayer for her, as she is 20 and she does all of those things. Needs to be perfect at
Mhm.
all things. Yes, yeah, that's
It's a curse.
good advice. Good advice. Um So, in our pre interview, we talked about a lot of things, and became abundantly clear very quickly that you have a wealth of knowledge, all things midlife, with your experiences and just the people that you do life with and help. Um, but one thing that we talked about kind of in length that I just felt was so incredibly powerful was your time ongoing of caregiving for your parents unexpectedly entering into the season of caregiving with your parents. Um, so yeah, so take us back to when you were 45. I think you said you were 45. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what happened that led you to become a caregiver to your parents?
Well, it started with my mom's stroke, and my dad called that morning and said, "I think your mother's had a stroke," and he had to go upstairs and wake her up. And I just about flipped out because it had come on the heels of my husband being I had just followed him in an ambulance to the hospital 2 days prior.
Oh
So
my.
he was my husband has had a lot of health issues, so this was, a scary time for me, and I was actually packing to go back to the hospital when I got this call. And, so the stroke started it was a massive stroke, and then 3 months later, my dad was hospitalized with emergency surgery, and that uncovered all kinds of things, and we didn't know if he was gonna make it. So right off the bat, both of them, they were 69 and 72.
Oh, wow. So relatively young. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
very
Wow.
young.
Wow. So just thrust into it. And how many you have 4 kids?
Mhm.
Uh-huh. So what was your life dynamic like at that time before being thrust into this caregiver role?
It was already a fevered pitch. It was fun, though. It was a fun fevered pitch because it was exciting. My older 2 everybody still lived at home. My older 2 were commuting to the college there. So they were in and out. My oldest was like a manager at American Eagle, and my son was he was working at Sears, and so like all this stuff there, it was like a revolving door with those 2. And then my younger 2 were 14 and 16, and I had just pulled them home the semester before to homeschool them through high school. And
Wow. Big.
yeah, so that was going on, and then my husband has always traveled for work, and at this point, I wasn't living in Florida with him, and so he would either be here in Florida away from us, and we would be doing our own thing and getting our own systems down, or he would come back home and disrupt the whole system
Yeah.
and just like he's very flamboyant and loves to the family and he's a whole mood. So that's what our family life was.
Wow. So super, super full.
Super
Full.
full. Mhm,
Super.
super full.
Wow. Um, what do you remember feeling in those first few weeks? Like, what were some of the emotions that were bubbling to the surface?
I'll never forget how I felt. I was so worried and frustrated, um, because all of it was happening at once. Jim was
Yeah.
in the hospital, mom was in the hospital, he got better, um, and mom and dad just kept getting worse. Like, she eventually almost completely recovered from the stroke outwardly,
Mm,
but there were some mental faculties that she never quite recovered from, just, certain problem-solving patterns, other you wouldn't know it to talk to her, you wouldn't know it. Um, she was a singer, not really a professional or anything like that, but she sang all my life, and it had damaged her vocal cords,
mm,
and she was also, filling in for, the position of, preschool teacher, which she had done. She had taught that grade for years and years before she retired, and then she was filling in, and she mostly taught in song, and she couldn't do that anymore.
mm.
But she kept having, little falls and accidents and fainting, and, dad then had a life-altering automobile accident after this. All of this was within the span of 6 months. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
and he almost died. So, all of this started happening, bap, 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 and then once you start that progression, then there is a specialist for every problem.
Mm,
And
mm.
so then I had to start going to every single one of them. to get the full story. And, it so you asked me how I was feeling during this time. At first, I felt really sorry for him the whole time. But then I started getting, as these things progressed and I kept being in a hospital, an emergency room, an ambulance, and my poor girls are waiting for me to, guide them in their schooling. I got so frustrated.
Mm.
And I remember talking about a fevered pitch at one point in the hospital one day. And I was like, God, I hate this. Why is this happening right now? This is not the time. They're too young. I just want to get them well and get on with my life. I want things back the way they used to be. Why is it like this? And I very clearly had the impression, Ruthie, this is the plan now.
Oh, wow. Huh. How did you respond to that?
It was
Because that's
almost a,
you,
it,
right? Like, this is your life now, right? How
this
did
is
you
your
respond?
life now. It was almost a relief
Oh, wow. Say more about that.
because once I realized that that's what God was leading me into,
Mm.
I could stop fighting it
Oh,
and stop being stressed out by what was happening to me. He was encouraging me to accept the life that I had right in front of me.
mm,
And so once I stopped resisting everything, uh, things were a lot easy. They were better to handle, maybe not easier because there were way more instances in the
uh-huh.
next 16 years to follow. Um, but life was better once I stopped resisting.
Sure. Sure, but you still feel all of those feelings and emotions. They still are present, but yeah, the battle isn't there anymore.
The battle isn't there. The inner battle. I mean, not that you don't want to pick that up and carry that cross again.
Yeah.
There are many times when I had to have another come to Jesus meeting and say, okay, okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting back in the fevered pitch, the bad fevered pitch.
Yeah.
So,
What are some things, cuz and maybe I'm begging the question here, but like what were some things that you had to grieve along the way in that change of this is my life now?
well, the first and foremost thing that I grieved for was mom and dad and what they lost because, um, for instance, my mom couldn't sing anymore. She loved to sing. She couldn't sing in the choir at church. She couldn't sing a lick. Um, she lost really the ability to be able to, she was a seamstress and she couldn't put those patterns together
Mm,
anymore. I remember sitting with her while they were working with her in the rehabilitation center after her stroke and giving her puzzles and things like that, some things she could not do. Um, and then with dad, his his regression was so life altering, especially outwardly, you could tell,
mm,
um, that I just grieved for him because I knew that it limited him in ways that were humbling and, um, a perception of what must people think of me.
mm.
And then also just not being able to minister like my dad was a pastor all my growing up years.
Oh, wow.
And, and so he still carried, even though he was retired, carried out that ministry. And he was still visiting people and he was still leading music at church and teaching classes. And he had to give a lot of that up.
Wow. Identity. they lost part of their identity, right? How they define themselves.
They lost their identity, and then for me, the hard part was having to make up for what
No.
they couldn't do anymore.
Mm,
And so trying to figure out how was I supposed to connect all the dots and be everything to all the people. Now, mom, wife, daughter, caregiver, and the ride and advocate.
yeah.
And I never wanted to go into nursing or doctor profession. I was one of those people that was queasy around those kind of situations. You never know that from some of the situations I've been in and the conversations that I've had very dogmatically
Mm,
standing up for my parents
yeah.
with doctors and the medical terminology that I know. One of the doctors said, "Are you a nurse?" And I'm like, "No, I've just been everywhere all over town with both my parents to
Yeah.
all the specialists. So I know all the terminology."
Right. Right. You said one thing in the pre-interview that I thought was just so interesting was um I never wanted to be a caregiver. Like I that wasn't anything that I wanted to do
Uh-uh.
good at, right? So how long do you think it took you to kind of settle into not even just the emotional aspect of what it requires to be a caregiver, but the physical aspect? Like how long do you think it took for you to settle into that, right? Like fighting your own propensity or like personality or whatever, however that plays out, right? How long did that take?
Took about
Well,
6 months. Really, the pivotal point was
was that
what I
time?
described to you that time, yeah, and then after that, I was like, "Okay, this is life, and so there's got to be ways to have joy still, and I'm gonna find them."
Mm. It's actually a great segue to the question I wanted to ask next was in the midst of the hard, like what surprised you, what stood out that was joyful or tenderness or meaning? Like how were you able to pick out those moments of joy in the midst of the hard?
Yeah. My family was a huge joy gem for me. Um, I call them joy gems because when I was a young mom, I read a book by Barbara Johnson, and it was something about joy, and I can't remember the name of it, but she encouraged us in this book to get these little plastic gems like you get at the Dollar Tree and put
Yeah.
them in your windowsill. And every time you see one with the light glinting off of it, think about joy. Think of what can you be joyful for.
Mhm.
And I have thought of that often during this uh, era, and I found a joy gem and I put it in my bedroom in the windowsill during all this time. So my family was my joy gem. They every night since everyone was home, and I was so glad that I mean, that this was the best era of my parenthood so far. Everybody got the joke. Everybody could feed and water themselves, and it's like we just, they're learning how to drive and all that. They're more independent, and it's an exciting time. They're going to get married and all this stuff. And so every night we would conglomerate on the couches. They would watch TV or play video games or whatever, but we're just all talking and laughing and just interacting with each other. That really brought me a lot of joy because it was normal. It was so normal. After a day in the hospital or in a rehab center or at a doctor's office, I could go home and be with my family and just laugh and be be me and just, let that go for a little while. So that was a huge burst of joy.
Mm. It's like salve for your soul.
Mhm.
Yeah. How, I mean, so it's your parents. How did entering in this season of caregiving affect your marriage? How did you and your husband partner together in this?
It only strengthened our marriage because okay, so I'm not a natural caregiver. My husband is.
Okay.
He's the one that always wanted to get up with the kids, when they were throwing up at night and all that. He's just like and I was the one that was like, "Well, okay, if you're up with him, I'm just gonna one of us should get some sleep." And then he would order me out of the bed and be like, "You gotta help her." But he's like right there, whatever. Anyway, he's the natural caregiver. He loves to take care of people. So he took care of me
Mm,
and he filled in all the gaps while I was taking care of my parents. He
mm.
would cook for the kids or make sure that they got dinner out. He would make sure everybody had clean laundry if they weren't already, which they should have been already. Washing their own because I taught him that.
Yeah.
Um, and he would pick me up or he would just fill in the gaps. There was one time when all of my kids this was a few years later, and everybody was home for Christmas, and my dad, he had a specialty in, having an emergency over holidays. He just specialized in it. It was like he had a doctor's degree in it or something. And so we had taken to the emergency room, and all my kids are home and they're singing karaoke and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm missing it. And so Jim was home with them and he said, okay, now that you've got this situation under control, you know what you're going to do. I'm going to come to the hospital and stay with your dad, and you go home and be with the kids. So it was stuff like that.
Mm.
It was good. It was strengthening.
It's beautiful. He is serving you in the best way possible.
Uh-huh.
And that's the goal of marriage is to put the needs of your spouse ahead of your own, right? That you both are doing that. And that in the seasons where one requires that more, then that other person just steps up in that season, right? It's a
That's what we
beautiful
do.
picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so in the 16 years, I mean, I can't imagine the gamut of roller coaster emotions, right? Even in that time that you said, this is my life now, right? That definitive time. How do you continually process your emotions healthfully, right? Like, what does that look like? What helps you do that?
Uh-huh. I started writing. I started
Oh,
writing a blog. Remember Blogspot?
I do, yeah.
I just started writing just things that made me laugh, and things that made other people laugh. And I would write a lot about our family. While we had that couch time every evening, I would just write funny things that happened with our family. Like one time, our pug, who had been fixed, thought she was pregnant, so she was developing milk sacs. True
I didn't
story.
know that was possible.
It was crazy. I didn't either until then, but, just funny stuff like that. Funny things that happened, to our family. There was always something funny going on because especially because my husband, I call him the guy who does everything, and because always got something going on. He's always got an angle, and he's buying a new motor coach, or he's gonna go hunting, big game hunting out, west and all this and get an elk. And I mean, he's just always doing stuff.
Mhm.
And so I wrote to for that, but I also started journaling just
Mhm.
personally, um, to write my thoughts and emotions because oftentimes we don't know really what's in our head and how to process until we do right.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. There's something about saying it out loud, getting your thoughts out loud and hearing you say it. Like for you, it's journaling and writing. I think for me, it's speaking it, like saying it out loud so I can hear it and then actually like
Mhm.
process, right? Um, and there's and I find this so interesting when you do that. It's almost like for a second you step outside of yourself and you're looking outside and then you can hear it fresh for the first time. Maybe like a thought that's been moodling in your brain over and over and over, but if you write
Mhm.
it or say it, it's almost like you've heard it for the first time and you can have a fresh perspective or insight into it. Um, yeah, that's really good. Finding that outlet is, I would think, imperative. And even like thinking about Pe you mu I'm assuming there was periods of burnout or close to burnout, right? So was writing a part of kind of helping that season too?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I realized that God was calling me to actually write more than just things about my family, that he was calling me to write about things that I was learning in scripture and to encourage others. And a big outlet for me, it just fills me up, has always been mentoring
Mhm.
moms, younger moms,
Mhm.
usually. And it's just, I mean, I've done it for years, just naturally met with moms in person and things like that. So that was my focus. I started an actual real blog that I owned instead of just Blogspot, and started really a ministry there about rearing kids. And then it evolved into a lot of other things. And then I came back around a couple years ago to this thing of really mentoring, but this time it's more in this role. Somebody that's like 10 to 15 years younger than me and
Mhm.
has been thrown into the caregiving season. And you're stressed. And um, I always knew that God was going to use this period of my life, especially as it continued on and on and on. Because remember, my parents started very young and
Yeah.
I was doing everything in my power to keep them alive. And I did a great job at it.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Um, there's so many things that I I wanna know. I just feel like, it's just a lot. It's a lot of information to process. It's so many emotions. It's so many continued emotions. Um, so writing has been the primary outlet for you to discover and pursue, like what keeps you steady, what keeps you with steady. Is there anything
Yes.
else that you do that you pursue that
Uh,
kind of keeps you steady?
the beach, but we already said that. Um, well, self care. I mean, I
Okay.
know that that's important, although I didn't think that it was really for the first 10 years of caregiving. First
Mm,
9 years of caregiving, I thought that that was selfish.
mm,
And I actually didn't have any help at all for the first 9 years with both my parents. Um, because of that, I thought, well, I'm the only child. This is my job. I have to do it all.
yeah.
Sometimes that was a martyr attitude. Um, but it took the 9 years to realize that it was okay to ask for help. So,
Mm,
self-care, and that freed me up to be able to travel with my husband more,
mhm.
once I started getting help and started actually being kind to myself and not working 5 days a week, long hours, but actually taking, like, a Friday afternoon or a morning and going to the beach, things like that.
That's actually a question did you work outside of the home in addition to all this at that time too?
Not at that time. In fact, God had orchestrated it where I had just quit my job, um, at the physical therapy, facility that I was working at. I had just quit the year before to start homeschooling my daughters.
Wow, okay.
So, no, I didn't. I didn't work outside the home.
Huh. It's a beautiful picture of being willing to be used by the Lord to love and to serve other people, and thinking about mentoring young moms, and then how it's kind of morphed into mentoring and coming alongside other women who are entering this caregiving season. Um, that willingness to engage, it's special, right? Because you have to, I would think that you have to revisit some of those feelings and emotions again, that vulnerability piece, right? In order to to engage well with other people, you have to kind of revisit some of those things.
Mhm.
It's courage, for sure. It takes
Yeah.
courage.
Yeah, you have to, and you have to do that, for me, in my writing, I have to do it in my writing, and I have to be transparent, and oftentimes that's harder, um, doing it in writing than it is in just, like, meeting someone
Mhm.
one-on-one and, um, processing their grief with them, but it's something that needs done.
What is harder about writing?
Because writing is so personal, it's kind of a dialogue. You are writing to to the people that need that message,
Mm,
but you're also being vulnerable and sharing things that you struggle with as a caregiver.
mhm,
Like, I don't always want to still do some of the things that I have to do.
mhm,
However, I have, learned so much about appreciation
mhm,
for the person that I am caregiving for,
mhm,
and the not wanting to speed up time, but actually slowing down, to their pace and letting them talk and seeing life through their eyes
no,
and appreciating this space that they are, um, serving in, really.
mm,
They have a purpose,
mhm,
and, and if we can slow down and look at that person that we're caregiving for and think about think of it with gratitude and think of all the ways that that person is teaching us and
mhm.
teaching others about life. Some of it's positive and some of it's negative, but it's still life lessons. There's a reason that person is still there.
It's so powerful. And for someone who says you're not a natural caregiver, um, I feel like the Lord has cultivated a beautiful heart towards caregiving, and not just the physical aspect of it, but entering into, help me see them through your eyes, help me appreciate whatever time I have with them. That's the Lord is very faithful in that, and you would never know you're not a natural caregiver at all by your conversations and just how you describe the process. It's pretty powerful. It's powerful because you and the one thing that I really appreciate is you're not shying away from the fact that is this is hard, right? You're not glazing it over. You're not saying,
Right.
"Oh, no, it's a joy all the time," because that's not real, and anyone knows that's not real, right? So that you can
Right.
embrace the hard and also see the gratitude or feel the gratitude in it is it's pretty powerful. Yeah. Um, so I always ask my guests some form of this question at the end. Um, and we've kind of already talked about it. You've kind of already kind of touched on certain things, but what advice would you give another person, woman, entering into a season of caregiving? What would you like to tell them?
It's not gonna be easy, but there is purpose in your season. You don't know how long you have. It might be 16 years, or it might only be 6 months.
Mhm.
But in that amount of time, God is teaching you something. He's always teaching us when we go through things.
Mhm.
And so your job is to figure out what he's teaching you. And I will tell you that I didn't start hearing from God until I started caregiving, until this very intense, fevered pitch season.
Yeah.
That's when I started hearing from him and I started putting it in my iPhone notes.
Mm,
So you say, I seem like a natural caregiver. That's the Holy Spirit.
mm,
And in spite of my strong will, especially at the beginning, he taught me so much about gratitude and thankfulness. And I picked up Ann Voskamp's book, A Thousand Gifts, during this time, and my kids were leaving home and I was sorrowing for that too.
yeah.
Um, so don't let your pain be wasted by trying to push it away.
Mm, mm. Wow. Don't let your pain be wasted. Mm. That is something that I think, especially nowadays, we desperately try and push that away, right? Through any means necessary.
We do.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Ruthie, thank you so much for being willing to talk about such an important aspect of, uh, you call it the sandwich season of entering midlife, right? The possibility
Mhm.
of having to start to care for our parents. Such an important issue, something that I don't think we talk about. So just thank you for your sweetness, for your vulnerability, and for your willingness to talk about it. I really appreciate it.
Sure. I loved this conversation. I love talking about it and encouraging caregivers whenever I can. So thank you for your generosity.
You're welcome.